Imagine crossing a silent field where everything seems calm, but with every step you take, an invisible pain runs up your legs, pierces your chest, and chokes your throat. It's strange because you have no reason to suffer, but your chest tightens, your soul tires, your body bends. This feeling has a hidden name, a hidden origin, which Carl Jung tried to warn about, and almost no one had the courage to listen. Maybe you've felt this way for years and never knew why. Maybe you think you're broken, that you feel too much, that you're weak. But what if I told you that this is a spiritual calling, a signature that only the chosen ones carry? Today, you'll learn about Carl Jung's dark warning for empaths, and you'll understand how to avoid the cruelest fate of those who feel too much, being devoured by pain that isn't theirs. You were not chosen to carry the shadow of the world. You were called to transmute suffering into power and transform deep sensitivity into emotional release. By the way, before we move on, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I want to feel the energy of the chosen ones spread across the world. And if what you hear here ignites some light within you, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This ensures you'll receive every new content, every guidance, because here you'll never again feel alone in your spiritual mission. Now, get ready, because what I'm going to reveal to you is not what you heard in books. It's the hidden truth that almost no one survives, but which could be your liberation. When people hear the word empath, most think of someone who's simply sensitive, someone who gets emotional easily, who cries at movies, or is affected by the words of others. But what almost no one realizes, and Carl Jung already warned, is that there's a huge difference between ordinary sensitivity and what happens to those who belong to the chosen group. A true empath is more than an emotional person. They're an open channel, a kind of energetic conduit through which the collective unconscious manifests itself unfiltered. You feel, absorb, and carry much more than you realize. And that's no coincidence. Carl Jung said that within us lies an invisible layer, the collective unconscious. It is here that ancient memories, powerful archetypes, unhealed wounds, and pains that span generations reside. Empaths, especially awakened empaths, those who have been spiritually called, don't just feel what's happening around them. They capture what's trapped in the air, in people's energy fields, in unresolved family traumas, in societal pain, and even in the spiritual tensions lingering in the environment. It's as if you carry an antenna on 24 hours a day, capturing frequencies others don't even know exist. You know that strange feeling of entering an empty room, but feeling a heaviness in the air? Or being near someone seemingly happy, but feeling an emptiness or an inexplicable discomfort? This is no coincidence. It's part of your spiritual mission. The chosen ones came into the world with a deep sensitivity, but it's not just an emotional sensitivity. It's a sensor of hidden energy, a radar that picks up on humanity's wounds. Carl Jung described this through archetypes, universal psychic patterns that speak to our souls, even without words. And it's precisely because they carry this invisible radar that empaths often feel out of place, as if they don't belong in this world. While most are preoccupied with everyday problems, empaths feel the spiritual pain of their surroundings, perceive the archetypes hidden within each person, carry the invisible weight of the collective unconscious. And if they don't understand this, they risk living in an energetic prison they didn't create. A lack of deep self-knowledge makes many chosen ones fall ill, never understanding the true reason for their hidden suffering. But here's the truth. Few will tell you, this isn't a sentence. This is a gift, but one that needs to be honed. The first step is to recognize you don't feel all this by chance. You are a channel, a psychic conductor, someone with a spiritual mission much greater than simply helping others. Your role is to transmute suffering, transform pain into power, decipher the invisible signals, and bring light to what the world still ignores. And only those who accept this responsibility can access true inner alchemy. So instead of asking yourself, why do I feel so much? Start asking yourself, What does the collective unconscious want to reveal to me? This simple shift in question has the power to completely transform your journey. Carl Jung said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." And your awakening begins now, understanding that you are not just any sensitive being. You are a chosen one, a translator of the invisible, and your greatest power lies precisely in what the world has tried to silence you. There's a silent danger lurking in the lives of chosen empaths, and almost no one talks about it. The world loves to extol sensitivity as a virtue, but completely ignores the cost of feeling everything without awareness. Carl Jung drew attention to a phenomenon that slowly devours the soul: psychic possession. When you don't recognize the origin of your feelings, what was once a gift becomes a prison. The unconscious empath becomes a living sponge, sucking up pain, anger, and trauma that don't belong to them, without even realizing they're being invaded. How many times have you felt drained after talking to someone, or left a room carrying a weight that wasn't yours? This doesn't happen by chance. Carl Jung stated that we are like open fields for collective energies, and the empath is the most vulnerable of all. The spiritual sensitivity of the chosen ones makes them easy targets for other people's spiritual shadow. It's as if, unconsciously, you're collecting the world's emotional filth, but the one who pays the price is your body, your mind, your soul. And therein lies the mortal danger. When unaware of their deep sensitivity, the empath ends up absorbing everything unfiltered without conscious limits. And what happens when someone carries a burden that isn't theirs? The body becomes ill, the heart weighs heavily, and life loses meaning. It's not uncommon for empaths to enter cycles of burnout, anxiety, or even depression, not because they're fragile, but because they're carrying the invisible weight of dozens of people around them, without knowing how to protect themselves. Carl Jung warned us that when the unconscious is not acknowledged, it takes over. And that's exactly what happens to unconscious empaths. Their emotions become a reflection of external shadows. With each unresolved conflict they perceive, they become irritated. With each sadness of others they absorb, they sink into their own. And little by little, they lose themselves, living under an invisible energetic prison, as if they were emotional prisoners of collective pain. But here's a liberating truth. You weren't born to be a sponge, you were born to be a conscious channel. The awakened empath is one who learns to identify what is theirs and what is the other's. When you master the ability to recognize your energy, you begin to filter what you carry. You stop suppressing yourself and begin choosing what you allow into your field. And then something magical happens. You feel without becoming ill. You perceive without suppressing yourself, and you carry out your spiritual mission with freedom, not suffering. The first key is simple. Every time you feel something intense arising out of nowhere, ask yourself, is this mine or is it someone else's? This simple exercise breaks the cycle of psychic possession. Carl Jung said that awareness is the first step to freedom, and the chosen ones need to remember, sensitivity is not a condemnation. It is a portal of power, but only for those who have the courage to become masters of their own energy and not slaves to collective pain. There's something even deeper that captures empaths without them even realizing it: the archetypal trap. Carl Jung discovered that we live under the influence of psychic patterns much older than we imagine. Symbols, emotions, and narratives that weren't born within us, but that permeate us. And empaths, especially the chosen ones, act as true magnets for these hidden forces. You don't just sense the environment, you feel the echo of your lineage, of inherited traumas, of your family's unhealed pain, and even of the ghosts forgotten by the world. Have you ever wondered why certain patterns repeat themselves in your life, even when you try to do things differently? Or why you carry strange dreams, old sensations with no rational explanation? It's no mere coincidence. It's the voice of your ancestry speaking to you through the collective unconscious. Carl Jung called these archetypal contents invisible inheritances that inhabit our psyche. And without deep self-knowledge, empaths end up not living their own story, but repeating cycles of their lineage without even realizing it. And it doesn't stop there. Dreams become powerful messengers on this journey. When an empath has disturbing dreams or recurring symbolic visions, it's a sign that they're capturing not only what's around them, but also forgotten content from the past. Jung always said, "Dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, and to ignore them is to walk blindfolded." The chosen ones need to understand that every dream image, every archetype, every sensation during sleep may be trying to free them or further imprison them. The most dangerous thing is that many empaths believe they are helping when in fact they are trapped in these repetitions. They confuse a spiritual mission with an endless emotional loop, and this compromises their relationships, their professional cycles, and even their health. Jung warned, "What is not brought to consciousness becomes destiny." The unconscious empath then lives a life that is not theirs, experiencing the pain of lineage, ancestry, and archetypes, without realizing they are acting out an ancient script. But it's possible to break this cycle. The first step is to take a closer look at your own patterns. Ask yourself, what in my emotions belongs to the present, and what do I carry from the past? What behaviors are connected to me, and which do I repeat without knowing it? Carl Jung said that self-knowledge is the greatest antidote to archetypal possession, and the awakened empath learns to recognize these invisible threads, and by recognizing them, has the chance to cut what doesn't serve and honor what is light. And always remember, you were not called to be held hostage by your ancestors' pain, but to transmute suffering and transform shadow into consciousness. When you recognize the trap of archetypes, you stop living on autopilot and begin to write your own story. Dreams become guides, lineage becomes strength, and your spiritual mission finally aligns with who you truly are. This is the beginning of true emotional liberation. In recent years, being sensitive has become something of a spiritual fad. Social media is full of phrases claiming that feeling is a superpower, that empathy saves the world. But what almost no one tells you, and Carl Jung already warned, is that this romanticization is a trap. The chosen ones end up getting lost in the myth of sensitivity, thinking that feeling everything all the time is a virtue, when in fact it can be the first step to spiritual illness. The problem isn't feeling, it's not knowing what to do with what you feel. How many times have you felt guilty for not wanting to help everyone? How many times have you thought you were weak when you felt emotionally drained? This is the invisible prison of romanticization. The unconscious empath believes that the more they absorb the world, the more evolved they will be. But Carl Jung said the opposite. The more you are dominated by the spiritual shadow, the further you distance yourself from your true self. And the romanticization of sensitivity creates intoxicated empaths, people consumed by the pain of others without realizing it. And what's more, many of the chosen ones begin to identify so much with the label empath that they forget who they are without it. They begin to believe they were born to suffer, that their spiritual mission is to carry the world on their shoulders, that feeling is synonymous with constant sacrifice. This erodes self-esteem, destroys hidden energy that could be used to manifest spiritual healing, and traps the empath in an energetic prison fueled by their own romanticization. Limitless sensitivity becomes toxic empathy. Carl Jung always said that where there is much light, there is also much shadow. The problem isn't sensitivity itself, but how it's managed. Empaths need to understand sensitivity is a tool, not an identity. You're not obligated to feel everything. You weren't born to be a sponge. You are a channel of consciousness. And consciousness also means having limits, knowing how to close doors, knowing when it's time to protect your spiritual energy. One question I always guide my empath patients to ask is my sensitivity liberating me or making me sick? This reflection alone has the power to bring light where there is confusion. Because when you begin to use your sensitivity consciously, you regain power. You learn to channel energy, not just absorb it. And hidden suffering gives way to emotional freedom, inner alchemy, and true spiritual awakening. The chosen ones are here to shine, but not to burn. You were not called to be a martyr. You were called to be conscious, lucid, grounded. When you break free from romanticization, you discover balance, feeling without losing yourself, helping without becoming ill, loving without nullifying your essence. And that's precisely where your spiritual mission truly begins to blossom, as a strong presence, not a walking shadow. Few things are as dangerous to an empath as energetic possession. And the most alarming thing is that most of the chosen ones don't even realize they're carrying burdens that were never theirs. Carl Jung warned of this invisible trap, the unconscious tendency to become a vessel for collective pain. The problem is that, without knowing how to filter, the empath begins to absorb traumas, dense emotions, and unprocessed energies as if they were part of their being. But the truth is simple. You weren't born to be a repository for someone else's shadow. Perhaps you've experienced this, feeling unwarranted anger, sadness that came out of nowhere, physical pain that had no explanation. And the more empathetic you are, the more this happens. Carl Jung called this psychic possession, when external forces penetrate our field and use us as a channel without proper permission. For the chosen, this is even more intense because their spiritual sensitivity is naturally more open, and the price is high. Exhaustion, emotional confusion, loss of identity, and, in extreme cases, psychosomatic illness. This is how many empaths become emotional repository for family, society, and even the environments they frequent. You walk into a room and leave drained, talk to someone, and feel the weight of that person clinging to you for hours or days. This isn't normal, it's not healthy, and it's definitely not the mission of the chosen ones. You're here to help, but not to carry the world's emotional filth on your shoulders. Without energetic cleansing, the empath becomes a toxic repository of suffering that was never theirs. But the good news is that there are simple and powerful tools to begin breaking this chain. It all starts with discernment, frequently asking yourself, is this mine or someone else's? And then, through the practice of energetic protection, whether through visualizations, energy baths, closing prayers, or even body practices like yoga or meditation. Carl Jung said that without awareness, we are slaves to the contents we carry. But with awareness, we become masters of what comes in and what goes out. A practical tip is to adopt small rituals of disconnection at the end of the day. Something as simple as washing your face consciously saying, "I release what is not mine," makes a difference, or lighting a candle before bed and visualizing the cleansing of the field. Awakened empaths no longer live on autopilot. They observe, feel, but know how to protect themselves. And this choice, when made consistently, changes everything. It takes the empath out of the position of emotional trash can and places them in the position of conscious channel. Remember, being sensitive is not the same as being vulnerable. You can feel without absorbing. You can perceive without carrying. The secret lies in vibrational sovereignty, deep self-knowledge, and the constant practice of staying aligned with your essence. From this place, your spiritual mission expands, not through pain, but through conscious presence. And you go from being a prisoner of toxic empathy to an alchemist of your own energy. There is a realm where the unconscious speaks unfiltered, where the body rests, but the soul whispers hidden truths. Dreams. Carl Jung always asserted that dreams are direct portals to the collective unconscious. And for chosen empaths, these portals become even more intense. While the waking world is filled with distractions, the dream world reveals symbols, emotions, and truths that we often lack the courage to see in the light of day. To ignore dreams is to close our eyes to one of the greatest instruments of spiritual liberation. How many times have you woken up exhausted after a confusing dream? or had repetitive dreams that seemed charged with dense emotions. This isn't random. Empaths capture archetypes not only in their conscious life, but also in their dreams. Carl Jung identified this as a symbolic language that tries, night after night, to free you from the energetic prison of waking life. If you feel the call to spiritual awakening, you need to learn to decipher your own dreams, because they hold keys that can transform pain into power. And these aren't just personal dreams. Empaths often dream of bloodline pain, ancestral shadows, wars they never experienced, fears that don't belong to them. These are symbols inherited from the collective unconscious, wanting to surface. The chosen one isn't just a recipient of others' pain while awake. They're also traversed while asleep, and it's in dreams that the first signs of psychic possession, energetic imprisonment, and even hidden pathways to emotional liberation often appear. But there's an important detail. Dreams need to be interpreted with awareness, not fear. Carl Jung said that the symbol is an invitation to integration, not panic. When you dream of dark places, storms, strange beings, the unconscious isn't punishing you. It's trying to cleanse, discharge, and liberate. And it's through careful observation, dream journaling, and post-sleep meditations that the awakened empath can capture the messages that need to be integrated to break repetitive patterns. A simple yet powerful practice is to keep a notebook by your bed, and upon waking, write down everything you remember without filtering. Then, throughout the day, reflect. What does this symbol represent in my life? Does this dream carry pain that is my own or inherited? Over time, you will realize that your dreams become spiritual allies. They will show you the moments when you've strayed from your path, when you're carrying what you shouldn't, and even when your soul is asking for release. The chosen ones who listen to their own dreams develop a silent, almost magical power. They cease to be victims of sensitivity and become translators of the soul. They understand when it's time to be silent, when it's time to act, when it's time to protect their hidden energy. Because those who listen to their own symbols are never again dominated by external shadows. And this is the beginning of a conscious spiritual journey where sensitivity doesn't devour, but liberates. There's a dangerous archetype that captures many empaths without them even realizing it: the wounded healer. Carl Jung studied this hidden pattern in depth and warned that without conscious boundaries, those chosen end up assuming a role that wasn't meant to last. They live to help, to carry, to save, but little by little they lose themselves. And the cruelest part, kindness itself becomes a trap. Compassion itself becomes a prison. The wounded healer is the one who tries to heal the world while bleeding in silence. How many of us have fallen into this illusion, thinking that our spiritual mission is to suffer for others, that feeling the pain of others is a sign of evolution? But Jung said, nothing is more dangerous than unconscious identification with the archetype. The awakened empath needs to understand that when they don't create boundaries, they become an extension of others' wounds. The hidden energy that should fuel your spiritual healing ends up being drained until you become nothing more than a reflection of others' pain, living to support those who refuse to heal themselves. This dynamic is even more common in relationships. How many chosen ones fall in love with the very person who needs to be saved? How many end up in friendships or environments where they become everyone's shoulder to cry on and never have anyone to lean on? This is the invisible effect of the wounded healer, making the empath believe their spiritual mission is to endure everything, never prioritize themselves, always put themselves aside. But the truth is clear. There is no true healing when you have to die to save someone. The key to liberation lies in conscious boundaries. Carl Jung said that deep self-knowledge is the only way to avoid being devoured by archetypes. The awakened empath learns to say no. They learn to look at pain and say, I can support, but I cannot carry. They learn to love without self-denial. and they understand that their spiritual sensitivity is too sacred to be used as a quick fix for those who refuse to face their own spiritual shadow. A powerful practice is to reflect, is this help I'm offering healing or destroying me? Ask yourself, is this burden I carry part of my spiritual mission or a detour from my path? The true healer is not the one who sacrifices himself endlessly. It is the one who leads by example, showing that it is possible to feel without being consumed, to love without being annulled, to help without being devoured. You weren't called to be a martyr. You were chosen to be a channel of transformation. And to do so, you must be whole. The wounded healer only has power when you forget your own importance, but when you honor your energy, care for your field, protect your soul, you become an example of living healing, not a victim of suffering. And that's precisely where your true mission begins to shine. There comes a time in every empath's life when pain ceases to be a burden and becomes a portal. Carl Jung always said that suffering should not be idolized, but rather understood and transmuted. The chosen ones did not come into this world to be prisoners of spiritual pain, but to cross it and find, on the other side, a transformative power. Transcending suffering means not denying sensitivity, but also not drowning in it. It means recognizing, I feel, but I am not the pain I feel. The truly awakened empath is one who transforms the invisible weight into living wisdom. They understand that their deep sensitivity is a tool for spiritual reading, not a sentence of suffering. They learn to channel what once sickened them into inner strength. They realize that the spiritual mission is not just to carry, it is to illuminate. Jung called this individuation, the process where you cease to be a fragment of collective pain and become a whole, aligned being, aware of your true role in the world. And it's not about rejecting emotions, quite the opposite. Transcending suffering means learning to embrace what you feel without losing yourself. It's listening to pain without being swallowed. It's seeing the chaos of the world without becoming part of it. The awakened empath looks at suffering with compassion, but responds with awareness. They are a presence, not a sponge. They are a guide, not a martyr. And little by little, their own energy begins to transmute environments, heal wounds, not by absorption, but by raising their frequency. A simple practice is to meditate on the following question. If I were not defined by suffering, who would I be? Reflect, if I did not carry the pain of others, what spaces would emerge within me? Carl Jung reminds us that the process of individuation requires going through the shadow, but it also requires not living in it. The empath who transcends gains the time, energy, and focus to create, love, expand, and most importantly, live their own spiritual mission without the burden of the entire world on their shoulders. And it is at this point in the journey that everything changes. The empath ceases to be a leaf in the wind and becomes firmly rooted in the earth. They feel but also decide. They perceive pain but also build peace. They transform shadow into light, not through absorption, but through their own awakened presence. The true ascension of the chosen one is not to live trapped in pain. It is to live anchored in consciousness. And when this happens, the world around them changes with it. Because the awakened empath's greatest legacy is this: to show that sensitivity is not weakness, it's hidden strength. To show that it's possible to feel everything without being swallowed. To show that it's possible to live with an open heart and a straight spine. And the greatest reward, to walk the world with lightness, with inner peace, and with the certainty that your soul was not chosen to suffer but to guide. And now that you've gone through this journey, I ask you, how many times have you felt like your sensitivity was a burden? How many times have you carried pain that wasn't yours and thought it was simply your way of being? How many times have you forgotten your own heart, trying to carry the whole world on your shoulders, but maybe that's not your story anymore? Maybe starting today, you'll begin to look at your sensitivity with different eyes. Maybe you'll realize that every emotion you carried unconsciously was actually a reminder of your spiritual calling, and that your mission isn't to nullify yourself, but to awaken. It's not to absorb everything, but to learn to transmute suffering into power. Now tell me, what resonated most with you? Which of these truths brought you the most clarity? Write in the comments. I want to know what changed within you after hearing all of this. And if this message has cleared your vision, if it's helped lift a burden, if it's freed your soul on some level, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. This way, you'll continue receiving content that strengthens your journey, protects your energy, and constantly reminds you that you are not alone on this path. Here, your soul is recognized. And if you know someone who's drowning in emotions that don't belong to them, share this video, because sometimes a single sentence, a single revelation can keep a soul from giving up on itself. And never forget, you are not here to be an emotional dumping ground. You are here to be a channel of healing. You were not chosen to suffer. You were chosen to transcend. This space is for you, for those who feel too much, for those who carry an invisible calling. Here, you will never be invisible, and together, we will always be a living reminder that sensitivity is strength, not weakness. And if you've made it this far, I want you to know, this already says a lot about your soul. Not everyone has the courage to look within, to face their own sensitivity, to transform pain into awareness. But you chose to listen, reflect, and get to know yourself. And this already puts you on the path of awakened empaths, those who transform the invisible into wisdom. So, always remember, this channel is your home. Come back whenever you feel the weight lifting, whenever you need clarity, whenever you want to reconnect with your deepest essence. Here, every word is a reminder that you have a greater mission, a purpose beyond the surface. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. And hit the bell, because each video you receive will be another tool to protect your energy and expand your consciousness. And of course, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Every story is precious. Every share strengthens this community of chosen ones. Your journey is unique and deserves to be recognized. Here we are together, growing, awakening, and remembering every day being sensitive is a gift, being conscious is freedom, and being chosen is a calling to something much greater.